It's just the physics that you engage in or not. And I was trying to complete a thought that got lost as soon as the camera went dink. So let me start as usual. Do my introduction of welcoming you. My name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, the Cornu Core, my patrons, and anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor. So I keep in my mind thinking that this is abstract, and if you were looking for something more specific about how to do a particular exercise, this may not be the broadcast, because my number one title is Living Within Cornu. By that I mean an awareness of Cornu tension in your body and using the understanding of that as a means to engaging your body, either sitting still or moving through space, standing. When I do an intermediate reformer every day, taking notes before the broadcast, and I broadcast just on weekdays, and I think it's more the reformer work than the broadcast work that gives me a suppleness of body that allows me to engage the way I hold myself, or the way I engage my muscularity, aware of Cornu tension and engaging in Cornu tension to make alignment sensational. And then what's the other reason that the two main things that awareness of Cornu tension gives you is a sensation of alignment and a distribution of load. That's not how I usually say that. But by more uniform engagement of the musculature, you get a lighter load to move through space. So it's this contrology develops the body uniformly. That's the beginning of a sentence in Joe, right after he defines his work. As contrology is complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit. There's no the in there, meaning it isn't contrology is the. His book says, the one that I have says, contrology is complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit. And MMP then would elaborate on what those words mean to it, me. This point of view is that it is that, and that it being something that is experiential. And as such, a state of being in the body in the moment of the doing. Okay? So living within Cornu, part of me wanted to say, well, doesn't Cornu live in me rather than me live in it? It's weird, some things I try to figure out. And yet, I left it as living within Cornu because by Cornu I mean Cornu tension. And I've defined that as oppositional rotation between axes, like within the human body. That's all I care about, the human being within, and explaining Pilates within the limitations of biology and physics. I can say that now because quantum physics clearly points to a nature of or characteristics of observing that MMP makes the connection to spirit on. ING. Now where am I in my notes? Alright, so number 2 is, on my list, is what only live can give you. What only live can give you. Because, and my answer to that was the moment that you're in. You know, only live can give you the moment that you're in. If you're not, is that what I'm trying to say? I don't know, but it's the Michael Miller-Pilates point of view that body, mind, and spirit means being, thinking, and observing. All of those words ending in ing, which is present tense continuous. Which within this point of view points to how you're after the presence of the moment in the effort. I said that, I'm not sure I understand what I said. My point I want to make to you is that in MMP, body, mind, and spirit are specifically the words being, thinking, and observing, all ending in ing, because as a type of word, it's present tense continuous. And in that regard, like in flow or flowing, from the moment onward, it's happening or doing, right? Being, thinking, and observing. Present tense continuous. And if that's not weird enough, my number 3 what if the prefrontal cortex is where thinking happens and the amygdala hippocampus is where observing happens? Just what if, right? Because I would be oversimplifying things if all I did was represent. Well, but see, that's the mystery of being alive and being human, and in pursuit of surviving the jungle of gravity. And so body, mind, and spirit, it can mean those can mean many things, each of those words. And so it's just MMP that is stepping in and saying, in our view of Pilates, that's being, thinking, and observing. Present tense continuous. And the necessity of all three is what it takes to completely coordinate all three. Pilates isn't body, mind, and more mind. It's body, mind, and spirit. And in the three things that Joe uses three different words for, this is the MMP interpretation of those three words. And yet there's thousands of points of view that could care less. it makes it all the easier to express the point of view that you have, you as you and me as me, when there are so many others to choose from, or to learn from, or to find worthy of any attention that you offer it. So what if the prefrontal cortex thinking, right, like sign language, everything that's going on in here, prefrontal cortex is thinking, as far as MMP is concerned, that's where thinking is going on. And something other than what's going on in your mind, right, is what feeds into it in what's out there, as in the amygdala and the hippocampus. Right? And I think Joe, in talking about complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit, is talking about a state of being in the body in the moment of the doing, and acknowledges the capacities within a human being, in their thinking, and in their observing. And for what Joe says, being completely concentrated on the purpose of the exercises as you perform them, right? You know, what does that mean? You got to be paying attention, totally concentrated. And that takes me to, in one word, what is Pilates? I'll never remember what brought this up. In one word, Pilates is exercise. You might say conditioning or training, but fundamentally, most generically, it's exercise. And that sets up the two-word definition of Pilates as corrective exercise. And the instructor stands in until the student becomes aware of their own experience and modify their effort based on what they sense as feedback from their effort. Right? It's corrective exercise. I was going to come with toys today, but I got so involved in this other philosophizing that, so what does this matter to you if you're just trying to survive as a Pilates instructor, and all this philosophy BS is like a cloud that you can't get a hold of? What I'm pointing to is that Pilates deals with being a human being, with surviving as a human being, and that spirit isn't something that's outside of the human being. It's a capacity like thinking and being are, that one seeks to coordinate in your effort. And that coordination can be as simple as pointing out that different parts of the brain do different things. And in the thinking part, I think it's prefrontal cortex. The MMP point of view is that. Don't crucify me if your view is different. And the amygdala and hippocampus represent areas of the brain that are more immediately connected to what's going on out there, as far as what's happening beyond the human being, as in senses, to what's going on in there in terms of thinking. Right? So, simply put, Pilates is combining your capacities to be in your body. See, I hate even trying to say it other than in present tense continuous, because I don't want to set a bad example, because it makes an important point about the point of view. Being a Pilates instructor is standing there seeking to help a student completely coordinate their being, thinking, and observing in pursuit of Joe's choreography, of course. So, I think the observing that every human being, that, I think most of life, right? All life, I don't know how to go beyond and make some kind of universal statement, but as a Pilates instructor, I only work with human beings, and unless they're comatose, their observing is probably there. So that takes me off on another tangent in terms of, could you give Pilates to someone that's comatose? And to me, I envisioned 6 instructors. The patient's comatose on their back, and you would have an instructor for each leg, an instructor for each arm, and an instructor for the head, which is 5, right? And then one more as the overall instructor, organizing the effort into a reflection of doing the mat, even though the mat is being done by external tension. And I've never participated in that, but to the extent that you're mirroring the pattern of progressive patterns of movement, right? And each of the instructors, except the lead instructor, is providing a function of tension to allow the movement to happen with or without the presence of or awareness of the patient. Because you would definitely, I think, be considered a patient at that time. But still, as an instructor, I'm aiming for performing Joe's choreography in the belief that it is the choreography itself that provides the results sought. So, for whatever you or I or anyone might philosophize about the nature of observing or what that is, at least having a sense of distinction from thinking and being, that it resides within the human being, I think aims for and hits that target of control. And not only the obvious, results you have on the way you engage yourself or move within the physics that you find yourself in. Within the realm of physics now, I wish Joe were here. And I wish I could be the first one to tell him, if he doesn't know, that at least one point of view in Pilates is not just based on who he taught and who he worked with, but based on what he said in his book, that seeks to find an ideal within what's there. That, oh, by the way, is sensational. So life can't live forever. And read between the lines and see behind the curtain. And in so doing, evaluate points of view, both stages and what's behind the curtain, and what's similar in different stages, right? I saw students, or whomever, I saw students standing inside the reformer with ankles and there might have been one spring maybe, but they're standing inside where the springs connect and pushing out of the reformer and bent over bodies and flexion. And that's just so outside of what I know of as classical expression that it makes me then wonder why they're doing that. As an instructor, as long as you have a sense of some kind of difference between body and mind and spirit, right? And that those three things are what you're trying to completely coordinate, I think you're at least aiming for Joe's definition. And see, there's not only the word becomes the mother of 10,000 words, 10,000 names, 10,000 points of view. And that's why my first title was Living Within Cornu, because just being flexible enough in my body to be able to engage it any way I wish, to move through space or to stand up or to sit. I'm not always in pursuit of perfect posture, but I know where to go looking for it, and I know how to find a sensation of it. That's what MMP gives you. Actually, that's what Cornu tension gives you. Because that's just an awareness of how to be in your body, and that's why you're living within Cornu, because what I mean by Cornu is oppositional tension between axes, and that exists throughout the body, at least in these 6 axes that Cornu, that my trademark points to. It's just one point of view. But to me, as far as, in terms of biomechanics, it's just a point of view. There's no data to make it science yet. But do you need data to have it be science, to have a sensation of it to be true in your own body, and thereby feel comfortable assuming the authority of what your senses tell you? We're talking about lining up and standing up straight, or holding a straight line. Let's say you know everything about anatomy there is to know. Books, lectures, history, lineage, all of that. Cornu tension is just a point of view about how the body engages itself to move through space. And in that regard, it points to the physics that the body embraces to make that movement happen. And so that's why I think I'm living within Cornu rather than I put Cornu inside of me and make it happen. the potential for you to engage in core tension as a way of engaging your muscles is up to you. Whether you do it or not is up to you. But the nice thing I've always felt is that in being aware of how it works, you can reach for a sensation that speaks for itself. You know, what language is that? Life can't live forever. Read between the lines. And see behind the curtain. You have your point of view and everybody else's. In the MMP point of view that you have some exposure to, it's transcendent because it's ideal in nature. It's a theory that there is an ideal, blah, blah. Evaluate points of view. You know, how do you make distinction? And one of the best ways is through sensation. Because from the MMP point of view, you're aiming for an experience. So like I've said in the past, when your student has been sent into the cave and gives you some kind of response like, I can feel that. You know, there they are. They're engaged in it because they've acknowledged something they observed or are observing. Usually they're talking in past tense. Because if they're in the middle of it, the performance of it, it's when all of a sudden you stop, you pop out of your focus and being, thinking, and observing, that you rise back to the surface, wondering why you couldn't have stayed longer and gone deeper and just hung out in whatever level or depth you wanted to. Human nature. All right, so as an instructor, when you at least have a distinction in body, mind, and spirit as being, thinking, and observing, it gives you a target to aim for that only happens in the now. It's present tense, and you reach for continuous as long as you can. The choreography of Joe's is a direct reflection, a reaction to the physics that we find ourselves in, challenged to survive in it. We are fish trying to swim through an ocean of air. Being made of water, trying to move through space where we're heavier than the space that we're in. Now, it's my opinion that through evolutionary tracks, like turtles and full moon, and using the water to get out of the struggle to survive within the water, from that point on, you bear your own weight, right? You carry your own water, although that has a lot of different connotations to it, meanings. Know what you know. When you evaluate points of view, know what you know. And as such, see, I think intrinsically, based on spectral distribution of human character, the more you get this, the more you'll be surrounded by people that don't. Just because it has character and depth to the extent that you explore that, and not everybody's interested in doing that. As a Pilates instructor, I think of being the escort to a student diving into their concentration, listening for a sensation that is discernible, from which to come out of with more control rather than less. So that when your thinking takes over and you anticipate in your mind, your thinking, how good the next rep's going to be, the bubble has already popped because you're thinking about what's coming, not connected to listening to what's happening. See what I'm saying? And when that happens, it's really tough to say, no, go back, or do more reps, or, try some more. The better you get at the language, the broader your vocabulary expands. That was well said. The better you get at the language, the broader your vocabulary expands. I don't know what you think about that or not, but I'm saying that in understanding the grammar, more confidently you get, your vocabulary expands because of the grammar upon which it's based. It has some integrity based on a grammar. I can't believe I'm headed into a reprise of this on Facebook. Add 2 and 2, right? Add 2 and 2. Ask for way more than anyone will ever give you. Christopher Columbus. Insist on getting paid in advance, in cash evidently, before she sang. Aretha Franklin. Why is that? How is that possible? Because she's there and she's ready to sing, and if you can't pay, then she can't sing. Doesn't have to, right? How do you compel a person to perform their art in any regard? Add 2 and 2. And know what you know, and from there, direct your thinking. Geist.